Identify risk process. Why do this or why have this process? So let us understand the purpose and objectives of this process. To manage a risk, first it has to be identified. Without identification, how we are going to manage the risk? And that is why the main purpose is identify the risk. Hence this process is existing, and that is the main objective. In this process, all possible risks are identified. It is impossible, of course we know, to identify each and every risk. Hence that wording is all possible or knowable risks are identified. Identification happens to the maximum extent possible. As risks are emergent in nature and some are also unknown in the beginning. They are existing but you don't know, that we have seen various risk classification, known, unknown, unknown, unknown. Some risk also can be unknown. Other than that, some risk can be emergent in nature. Risk management identification has to be an iterative process. That is another reason the process is existing. It is significant to note that when a risk is identified, if possible, potential owners, that is potential risk owner who will be owning that risk, are also identified in this process of identify risk. The risk owner is an individual person who is responsible for monitoring the risk and selecting and implementing an appropriate risk response strategy or a combination of risk response strategies. We'll see various risk response strategies in the lesson of risk response planning. So here a potential owner will be identified, and this owner is the person who is responsible for all these activities, including the monitoring of the risk. It is the job of risk owner to manage the respective risk throughout the processes. The risks for which owners cannot be confirmed or are only nominated in identify risk process, the final confirmation will happen in perform qualitative risk analysis or the process of QLRA. Here it is potential owners. Here it is confirmed owners. If it is not confirmed here, then of course it will be confirmed in the QLRA process. All risks are identified, then the preliminary response and the risks are also considered here. So not only you are taking the potential risk owner, the preliminary response, not the final confirmed response. The preliminary response will be taken also in identify risk process if it is possible. For the risks where the risk response cannot be taken, they are finally addressed, mark the word, they are finally addressed in the process of plan risk responses. But risk response actions are only in plan risk responses process. So this is risk response strategy. A strategy can have multiple actions. So the preliminary response strategy will be an identify risk process. If it cannot be done, then it will be confirmed and finally addressed in plan risk responses process. But when I am talking of risk response actions, not risk response strategies, those will be only done in plan risk responses process. Do note the change in wordings, risk response and risk response action. A single response or single response strategy can have many risk response actions. There's a subtle wording will be there, here and there changes. You need to be very careful what I am saying and what is being asked in the exam. If you are missing even one word, your whole answer or your understanding of that question is going to be wrong. And you need to be aware of these subtleties in identify risk process, in perform QLRA process and plan risk responses process.